Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room with myself, Lewis, and to another episode of Expert Analysis. If you haven't seen the last one with Sonny Snelling, go check it out on the channel. Doing really well at the minute, really interesting perspective from a Tottenham fan. And today, for the next episode, we have a great one. We have someone who's known not only for his passion, but also his fashion. He's a man who is a core representative of Liverpool Football Club fan content. And it is, of course, Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap. If you haven't seen them already, please go check out the channel and subscribe. Post-match pint, Friday night to Verdinger, all top quality. And if you haven't already, go download the Anfield Wrap app for all the latest Liverpool content, podcasts, journalism, and videos. Neil, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm now disappointed I've just gone with the purple jumper because I'm bouncing around hard. So, if I'd have known the big briefing was in, I'd have put something with glitter on. But as it is, we'll be all right in the end. And it's important to stay warm, as it's just the weather's decided just to freeze. Play, so you've got to bear that in mind.
Shocking. Well, I mean, this is why I dressed that. I thought I'd match the.
You got up, yeah. No, I'm now in awe.
Mate, got to represent. Right, so I suppose we'll get started then, because I feel like for the first time in a long time, Liverpool we're very much in the spotlight. We're very much at the epicenter of everything going on. For the first time in a long time, there's rumours and news and positivity, negativity. Just want to get your overall assessment on how you think the season's been so far, just given everything that's been going on.
I think the season's been obviously good to date. If you'd have said to me they had this many points at this stage of the season before a ball was kicked, I actually would have thought, yep, that's about what I expect from them. What the surprise is that, we've dropped points in 8 games, Arsenal have dropped points in 8 games, and City have dropped points in 7 games. And I'd have expected one of those two, probably City, to arguably be doing a little bit better. Now City are coming into their element now, and we know what that looks like. We've lived it before, but we've got the idea of playing them at Anfield in our back pocket as we go through the rest of the campaign. So, as I say, play 23, 51 points is not, to me, outrageous. Liverpool finished last season strong. And within that as well, Liverpool, I think, they were curving a certain way. And I've always said, if you've got the best goalkeeper and you've got the best 5 attackers, then you're always going to be in good nick. Now, obviously, no one plays well on Sunday against Arsenal, and the goalkeeper especially has a really poor afternoon. But class is permanent in this, and we've got to just sort of trust that they bounce back from there and go from there. So now I'm happy with it. As I say, it's about the points I thought it'd be. The fact that it means that we're top at this point, albeit with City having the game in hand, that's the thing that surprised me more than the performance of Liverpool.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the points total, because I think there was something that statistically, if we went on and reached, I think the points total we're expected is around 83 or 84, around about that mark. It would be the lowest points total that a team's won the league since I think it's like 14-15 or 15-16. Is it a sort of, do you think the quality of the league this season's been poor compared to previous ones? Or do you think it's maybe City and us have sort of dropped a little bit while other teams have caught up and closed the gap?
I think I don't think there's ever been as many good footballers in the Premier League. I think the quality of the football's incredible. You've got players like the example I always give, so I'm boring, but you've got players like Pedro Neto bouncing around at Wolves, who's an incredible footballer when he's fit, like genuinely would be playing at normal times for a side that was expecting to finish in the top 4. But Wolves might finish top half, but they might not. But he's playing for them, and when you've got to deal with him, so he's one of the things that hurts City when they go to Molineux is Neto absolutely batters Nathan Ake, goes and plays on that side. Similarly, he gave Joe Gomez his toughest game of the season as well when we went there, but we managed to get a result. We changed it at half time and we pushed on. Then you're looking at West Ham with players like Paquetá and Bowen, who are both exceptionally good footballers. Again, West Ham might finish 7th, but they might finish 10th. You're looking at a side who look as well drilled as Bournemouth, who will probably finish around where they are now, which is 12th. Crystal Palace are 14th. They've got Elise and Eze, and on the day, pretty close to unplayable. But the flip side is they can't continually make it their day. You can do this all the way down the league, I'd argue. Now Luton, for instance, have got themselves into a situation where they've got Ross Barkley pairing. Luton, it's a difficult place to get something from. So I think that's what's happened. I do think that Liverpool and City, I think in different ways, I think Liverpool's dip was obviously last season. It's worth saying City have a bit of a funny start to last season as well. But end it ever so strong and end it on 89 points. I think that there is a thing there where we can expect City to come strong and we can expect people to produce. But I don't think there's been quite that that feeling that you need to be going at 97, 98 point pace from the first game. And I think that also, I think that's something that is different and has been different to what we've seen in the past. But what happens from here is almost going to be the marker point. If either of Liverpool and City genuinely kick for home, or maybe Arsenal, although I think Arsenal are a little less likely to, but if either of Liverpool and City genuinely kick for home and we're looking at extended 4 or 5 game runs of pure wins with an occasional draw dropped in, then we'll know that sort of normal service has been resumed.
Yeah. And look, of all the teams, I think us and City are those two that can go on that big 15-game winning streak, and just we've seen it in the past in like the 18-19, the 19-20 season. We're capable of doing it. And it's interesting this season that we've been able to do it after coming out of such a transitional period. Like, we've lost so many key players, so many big names, and we've had to bring in these fresh new faces, and like Szoboszlai, who I'll be honest, I didn't hear of him much before the transfer. Endo's come in, who's really fitting into his own. How well do you think the transition's gone with regards to the changes we've had to make to the squad?
I think it's gone. I don't think it could have gone really any better. I think part of that is why you're excited about the potential of the squad, not just in terms of the players who are already here, but the idea that it will take some building to do a bit more, but it won't take loads. And I think there's a real sense of, they can take it in any direction. The new manager can go in any direction that he wants to go in. And that, I think, is a really exciting point. He could decide Alonso, for instance, plays a lot of 3 at the back at Leverkusen at the minute. And if Liverpool decided to add another top quality centre-back, you wouldn't go, well, that's madness on the one hand. But on the other hand, you can also see that if it would only really be one. Similarly, you can look at the midfield and see the range of options that are there, but you could decide you want to take it in a more technical direction than a physical direction, but it doesn't need major surgery in any of those directions. The forwards, I think when we find out who the new manager is, how he attacks, I think will have some ramifications for, I think, a couple of them. I think, I like both Diaz and Gakpo, but I do wonder whether or not Liverpool may want another pure forwardy forward. I think that I do worry that Diaz, even though I think he's getting better and better at it, but I've always felt he's a bit more of an attacking midfielder than a forward. And it's a fine line, this sort of thing. But I sort of wonder about the same thing with Gakpo, and it might be that someone who comes in wants to play with a number 10. At which point Gakpo makes more sense, but it might be that someone comes in and wants a different profile. But I think that the other 3 depends on Salah and contracts and transfer stuff. I think the other 3 feel not that they have to be the ones that start every week or the ones that will start every week or the ones that even start a final, but they feel like their feet are firmly under the table. But it's possible that might not be the case. But my point is that whoever comes in, there's no need to get rid of anyone. There's no clear sort of X or Y is dead wood. But there's also loads and loads of options to choose to do things differently. And I think that's really exciting. And it's part of one of the reasons why I think Klopp feels like this is a good time for him to move on, is that I think he likes what he's leaving behind.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been lucky with the fact that we've got a plethora of attacking options who are very versatile and can do many different things. And you mentioned there, like, whoever comes in is going to have a head start given the squad he's got. People have compared it to when Sir Alex left United, but when he left, he knew that team was done. Everyone had reached their peak, like Vidic, Van Persie, Evra, Ferdinand. You mentioned there Alonso. Now, we are going to get on to, obviously, the elephant in the room, which is Klopp leaving. We're all devastated. I mean, I cried. I'm man enough to admit that there were tears. Is Alonso the man who you think has to come in? Is he your number 1 pick?
No, because I think there's a missing part in this, is that Alonso might not want to do it. Yeah. So everyone's sort of acting as though if he's offered it, he'll definitely take it. And to me, what's really interesting is he looks like he's really staggered his career so far. He didn't have to go to Sociedad B as his first move. He could almost certainly have got a club in the Premier League, La Liga, or the Bundesliga. That was, around mid-table. But he didn't. He went to do something else to plan and to learn. I think there's every chance somewhere in the back of his mind he's thinking, I want to do a season in the Champions League with Leverkusen before I go to a bigger club. I want that experience. And if that's the case, if that's sort of where Alonso's head's at, then we can't act like it's Alonso or bust and we'll all be in real trouble. Because I just don't think that stacks up. I think, other football managers have won. Whilst Alonso's been at Leverkusen, obviously, but also whilst Jurgen Klopp's been at Liverpool, and I don't think you don't get to stop. You don't get to say, well, we need 12 months, but also these footballers. There's a reason why Liverpool pay out one of the biggest wage budgets in the world. There's a reason why Liverpool, are the 7th richest club in the world, and I don't think that there should be anyone feeling sorry for themselves. The new manager, whoever he may end up being. The onus is that he comes on to win. We know what City are, and we know the background of that. We know about the charges, and we know that there's, that it's been a difficult situation, and it'll continue to be difficult to go up against them and other sides. But then whoever comes in knows that, because they won't be an idiot. They know that that's the job, and if they're coming in to do it, then they're coming in to win. So that's, for me, that's the beginning, middle, and end of the matter. I'm not interested in Liverpool knocking around feeling sorry for itself post Jurgen Klopp. I don't think that's that's just not what Jurgen Klopp would want either. Part of why he's going, I think, and part of why he's picked this moment is because he feels like he's passing on something that is in really, really good nick to be taken to the next level by the next person. That's the aim, and that's what the next person's got to do. Whoever it is, if it isn't Alonso, whoever it is comes in to win. That's the job.
Yeah. And you make a really good point there, mentioning that Klopp's leaving. It's going to whoever. He's leaving it in a good position, like you mentioned before. The reason Klopp be leaving, obviously, because he's tired and he feels run down. And I think it's commendable, the fact that he's being so honest and saying, look, I'm going because I know that I can't get the best out of this team going forward because I just physically can't do it. Someone's going to have to come in with fresh ideas. Now, is there any sort of concern with, just say, for example, we've got all these young lads that are developing under Klopp. We've got Conor Bradley, Kwanzaa, Beck, McConnell, Scanlon, Chambers, etc. Is there a manager who can come in and continue to develop these lads? Not in the exact same way, because it's a different system, of course, but who could make them better? Who'd be the best fit for them in that regard, possibly?
And that's an interesting and difficult question. I think that you end up sort of pulled back to what we think the developmental curve of the new manager, the next manager, needs to be, and I think that's a difficult question. I'm quite, around it. I think that there's a number of names who can end up sort of dropping themselves into the frame. I feel like what's difficult is understanding the pressure of Liverpool versus other clubs of the sort of likely candidates, because I do think that a really good example is for De Zerbi at Brighton. I'm not saying that there isn't pressure, but it's not effectively decided. Liverpool kick off 28 of every 38 games in a league season, not just as favourites, but as odds-on favourites, pretty much.
Yeah.
So you win, great. You don't win, you've got to be able to front up. And as Klopp himself mentioned, just do 6 post-match interviews explaining why you didn't win if you're Liverpool manager. And that's the question. Effectively, question one is, why did you get beat? It's not, are you pleased with what you've seen today? Did you feel as though you helped the boys develop? So, I think that it's a difficult set of pressured circumstances, but I think the club will internally have its own criteria that it's using to find out who they feel as though will be someone who develops young prospects, because I don't think anyone, the work that's gone into that over an extended period of time, I don't think that that's going anywhere. I think that Liverpool are going to continue to see development of young players and getting the best young talent to come to Liverpool at the ages between 15 and 19. Bradley, for instance, is a player who's had a long time at a Klopp Liverpool, but he is not a pure academy product in the same way that Kwanzaa is. Liverpool, other clubs were interested in his services, but part of how you get the next Bradley is you're able to say, look at what we've done for Conor Bradley, look at what we've done for Kwanzaa, look at what we've done for Bobby Clark, look at what we've done for any one of a list of players. We've given them opportunities when there's been opportunities there, even if some of those players haven't taken them. And I think that Liverpool aren't going to stop wanting to do that off the back of the next manager. It just may be that it operates in a slightly different way over an extended period. So I refuse to believe. And also the other thing about this is that these fellas are malleable as well. If one of your jobs is you're coming in Liverpool, what's the expectation? Well, this expectation in this competition, this expectation, and this is the way we operate in the transfer market. You've got to make it work for you. And then there's another expectation to bring young players through. I think Liverpool can explain that to any prospective candidate and say, right, well, that what the expectations are on you.
And Brendan Rodgers, when he came to us, I suppose he probably felt that same level of, he was at Swansea, Watford, Reading, stuff like that. And then you come to Liverpool and the expectations are much greater than what it would be at those clubs.
Yeah, no, but I think it's, but also Rodgers heaped the expectation on himself by virtue of how good the 13-14 season was. He was then looking after the Champions League team. And that's, I think people understand, I don't think there was like a coherent 3-year, 4-year plan behind that. Liverpool just had a remarkable, and it was a genuinely remarkable season. And the manager was really important to it. But then trying to sort of bring the alchemy back was exceptionally difficult, I think. But that was because of the loss of Suarez, the loss of Sturridge to injury, the loss of Gerrard because he'd given everything he had. The previous campaign, you can even argue a couple of the centre-backs suddenly are then past their best, moving into the following campaign from a Liverpool point of view. Toure, for instance, 13-14 comes in as a breath of fresh air. By 14-15, he looks like yesterday's man a little bit. So you end up sort of going through and you can see a little bit of that, but the younger players, Henderson, as was Coutinho and Sterling, actually continue to produce under Rodgers. The other ones are the ones who've got the problem. The point, though, is I think that was a raising of expectations. Anyone who comes in, Liverpool will finish no lower than third this season in the league. We think and are optimistic they'll break 80 points. They will be rated as third in the bookmakers' markets for the league title at worst going into next season. They'll be back playing Champions League football, where they'll be fourth or fifth favourites for that at worst. That's the job, and that's why there's no hiding places for whoever it is who comes in next.
No, absolutely. You're very much in the spotlight. And I suppose because you're taking over after Klopp, who I've always used the analogy that if Liverpool was a person, it's Klopp. And you're replacing someone who isn't irreplaceable, but you can't do the same job as what he's done. It's insurmountable in some regards. And we mentioned there that there's a system, there's a plan, or there has been a plan. I want to get your quick thoughts just before we carry on with the team and the players on the FSG model with regards to, we've seen City recently are in this financial struggle with 115 charges. Chelsea are another example. Barcelona over in Spain are struggling financially. Is there any sort of credibility to the way FSG have done things where, it's been a slow progression and people would like to see more money get in, but it's a sustainable business model that is keeping the club going for years and years and years rather than short-term success, but it's a detriment further down the line?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big question because I think first and foremost, obviously, City, other than the charges, are now in, remarkable, are able to state and lodge accounts that put them in remarkably rude health financially, and that isn't going anywhere. And they're also happy to play the PSR system as it's currently being set up, with reference to the idea of cashing in on younger players who are academy sort of prospects as pure revenue to free up spending elsewhere. City, there's nothing sort of within those at the moment that you see where they've got to where they've got to, and now they're able to go about and do what they've been doing across the last couple of seasons. I think the Chelsea comparison or reflection, because a lot of what Chelsea do is what a number of Liverpool supporters would have liked Liverpool to have done more of. Is I think it's useful, but I think even that, because it's such a level of madness. And such a level of theoretical cleverness, which has ended up biting people. It's worth reflecting on, but even that, I think that isn't necessarily what people have been asking for. I think that the smarter we are around the way we go about business in a Liverpool sense, and there being power and teeth to profit and sustainability regulations, both home and abroad, I think that is in Liverpool's interests. I also just think it's in football's interests. I think the way Liverpool have run Liverpool, the FSG have run Liverpool is, I think, broadly speaking, the way football clubs should be run. And football clubs would find it easier to work within that model if clubs pretty much did. Nothing overheats the transfer market as much as what you've seen Chelsea do in 2004 and what you've seen Chelsea do in 2022, 2023. Similarly, you saw a period where City overheated the transfer market, and that's bad for everyone. It's bad for fees. It's bad for wages. Liverpool do put in what they take out, if you see what I mean. Everything that Liverpool do ends up on the pitch. And I think that if clubs saw the idea of the break-even periods, as we now all talk about with Everton, 105 million, if clubs saw that idea, not that 145 million is the threshold, but that 30 million is the threshold, or 5 million a year, which is what it is, first and foremost, is the threshold, then I think the Premier League is so much richer than all the other leagues. I still think there would be the same quality of player. I think that the Premier League's become smarter in the last 2 years in terms of its recruitment from overseas. I think there's a lot more savviness around that now. To go back to, for instance, the West Ham example or Kudus, stuff like that, people getting pretty much value for what they pay for. I think that having overheated, then there will be ramifications. And I understand why there's been times where people have been frustrated with Liverpool, because you're looking at it and going, why aren't you doing more of that? I also think there's an argument that Liverpool, given literally the background of the people who run Liverpool in terms of risk, and it's easy to say now, but I think it's worth saying, Liverpool could have done a bit more in 2020 when the pandemic was at a bit of a height. If Liverpool had assessed the situation a little bit better, I think that's sort of one of the very, very few ones where I am, I can't bear it when people say they should have done more in 2019 because the season after they won the league. And that's what you're there to do. But I think that there was a moment of maybe getting a couple more players in off the basis of the fact that the market was in a really funny place, and Liverpool were perhaps in a position to be a bit of a big player in that period and throw the weight around a little bit. And I think that they erred on the side, as I say, it's understandable, but their background is risk. And I think they took the less risk-based option in that period, when I think that a couple more chances being taken could have helped massively in the longer run. But I think that's all okay now, because we are where we are, and you like the squad as it is now. But I think that the key part of all of this is, as is always the case in football, sort of what happens next. Chelsea could get a new manager in who makes sense of it all a lot more very, very quickly. They kick on. Similarly, the rules may be weakened, because one of the things that's not being factored in is, I don't think the television companies, one in particular, will have been particularly happy with a really dead January, and will be thinking to themselves, hang on, we all make a lot of money and get a lot of clicks and a lot of engagement from the business of transfers. I'm literally on your podcast, which is called LFC Transfer Room. We're all in it. I see it at the Anfield Wrap. Nothing makes people subscribe to the Anfield Wrap or listen to the Anfield Wrap as much as a big transfer or a big win. So if we're in a football industry sense, there's going to be fewer transfers that fire the imagination for 12 to 18 months. I think there'll be pressure external to football around relaxing regulations, and that pressure, I don't think necessarily, within that, I don't think that'd be good, but I think it's a live prospect that people begin to say, well, hang on, do we want to do this because part of what everyone's in it for is the soap opera of the transfers? And if you're going to take that away, then what do we all cover in June and July? And I think that's going to be a live thing as well in there. So I think that while Liverpool look like they're sort of well placed at the moment in a variety of different ways, these goalposts can be moved, and could be moved quite quickly, and could be moved by exterior factors separate to us.
Yeah, and you mentioned there, and it's really well put, actually. And there is a lot of external forces that can drive a club's sort of perception of where they want to move to, like what players they want to bring in, how they want to progress. It's now more than ever, football has a greater reach to the outside world of the sport itself, and just actual everything is involved in it at the moment. And it feels very much like the financial fair play rules and the profit and sustainability rules. This is the first time where it really does feel like they're clamping down on teams. And you mentioned there that we sell players to buy players. We saw it when we sold Suarez, and we invested that money back into the squad. We saw it with Coutinho. We invested it back in. Mo Salah was a player who was linked to a move in the summer, around 150 million, 200 million, touted around for Saudi. With this new manager coming in and this new system and everything that's going to be brought into place, is it in the best interest of the club to either keep Salah for the next manager, or would it make a bit more sense to sell him and use the funds to reinvest in a squad that the new manager coming in would like to develop going forward?
I think that's a lot of that's going to be sort of driven by what Salah does or doesn't want. I think that the new manager whoever it is, could want Salah, but it might be that Salah's decided it's time to move on. It may well be that Salah decides he wants to satisfy his footballing ambition somewhere else, or that there's a big financial incentive for him to move to somewhere like Saudi Arabia, or possibly even the US, either in the short term or in the longer term. I'm of the view the best course of action for Liverpool is another year at least of Salah, because I think that the manager going is such a bit of upheaval, given his cultural sort of significance. I think him taking the three that he is taking. And by the way, that is not everybody who works on the technical side at Liverpool going. There's a lot of people who aren't going as it stands, but the people who are also moving on with him at the same time, they're a loss to what everyone's used to. So I feel as though there's an argument that Liverpool stick with the knowns that they have to as much of a degree as possible, at least for 12 months, and then you can take another couple of risks. So Mo Salah's level, unless something extreme happens, we know what it is and we know what he can bring. So I would rather have the knowledge of that than anything else. And it's the same with the other two players whose contracts expire in 2025, who I think everyone would like a bit more clarity on. I think it's important that all three of them are either tied down or arguably in the case of Salah, there's a decision made that we're going to shake hands at the end of that process and he's going to leave the club on a free. For Liverpool to do that in a controlled way, whatever that might be, as I say, or a new contract or something like that, I think that would be better. I think that the idea of trying to effectively integrate a new world-class centre-half partnership, a new outstandingly good progressor of the ball from all over the pitch and a real football brain who's also happens to be a local icon, or a new superstar attacker at the same time as doing the new manager, I think all becomes just a little bit tough. So I'd rather Liverpool played it a little bit safer and look to either tie all three of them down or just make the decision on Salah that they're happy to not, that they're going to take the risk of a non-renewal, but they expect him to be a Liverpool player until 2025.
Yeah, it's a very risk and reward kind of thing. And we've heard Van Dijk recently where he did the interview where he was saying, I don't know what my future is. And then he had to come back out and clarify saying, look, it's just, there's a lot of change, but I'm committed to the club. I still love the club. With that in mind, I mean,
the hard thing on the contracts though, Lewis, I think has been like the manager will not be lying to his players. It's not what he's interested in. But those players did not know this situation pretty much until we did, from the sound of things. The same morning they found out. So that's why the idea of Liverpool pursuing people for contract renewals, if there's been a period where the manager's not sure about himself, and then from November there's been a certainty about himself that he's communicated to Liverpool's hierarchy, the first question, even before the news of Klopp choosing to resign, his contract was till 2026. So if I'm having a conversation with Virgil van Dijk, certainly if I'm having one with Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's well within his rights, or his representatives are, to say what's happening with the manager. And if Liverpool's hierarchy, which, at least Gordon and Klopp, who you think will be involved in those sorts of decisions and renewals, can't answer that question honestly, or don't feel as though they can, then I think Liverpool won't have wanted to start that conversation, because so much of what Liverpool have built, what Klopp's built, based on trust. He doesn't string the players along. He's very, very honest with them at all times, by all accounts. So the idea that he's rocking into a meeting and saying to Virg, I'm going to sign a new deal, and then last weekend of January is shocking the world. Well, Virgil will be knocking on his door saying, "What was all that about?" So I think I think that needs to be sort of borne in mind. I do think that it's important to sort of firstly not act as though someone's got something very, very badly wrong. Although I do think you can have a couple of questions about it in general, the 2025 situation Liverpool have ended up in. But I think also just remembering again, it's a workplace where people want to be honest with one another is really important.
Yeah. Well, like if you were to leave the Anfield wrap, for example, and you went, I'm going, there'd be people beneath you who are like, well, what happens to us? What's the plan going forward? Everyone would be curious in that situation. So I think what he said, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just think, like we mentioned earlier, people, external forces and external websites and places are going to use that story to get clicks. And naturally, that's just what happened. Now, we mentioned there external forces. Now, there is, of course, talk of the documentary. That's a big thing that's going to be coming up. I just want to get your quick thoughts on where do you stand with regards to this? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? And with Klopp going, now that it is the end, his last time there, his last few months, is this the best time to be doing it?
Who has cut? That's my first question, because I want it to be a good documentary. If you're going to make a documentary about Liverpool, I want it to be a good documentary. But to get a good documentary, I'd argue there's too much. I don't like watching sports documentaries. Sports documentaries in particular, but I would say documentaries in general, where the subject of the documentary has final cut.
Yeah.
I've just got a sort of a philosophical issue with it, with me background doing a number of different things. I just don't think that that's a good thing. So if you're up, first and foremost, if there's going to be a documentary about Liverpool, I want it to be good, and I want to feel like you're getting your teeth into it. But I'm not and I suspect, it may well be. My first question is who has final cut, and what are the terms and conditions, and then within that, then the rest of it sort of flicks from there. So if we're worried about it from a Liverpool point of view, but Liverpool have final cut, then we probably just don't need to worry. If we're worried about it being good or bad, and Liverpool have final cut, I would argue it is less likely to be good. It may well be that in terms of him agreeing to it, that Klopp has insisted he, and any scenes he's in, gets to have a watch of it and say whether or not he'd stand for that, or maybe his management might choose to do that for him. Again, it's whether or not we want it to be, as I say, whether what you think that the whole thing is. And I don't think there's been, in the statements that have been put out, a lot of clarity around that so far. And it doesn't have to be. And why Liverpool Football Club / Fenway Sports Group / Jurgen Klopp / the players agree to do something is not, necessarily to create a fantastic work of art. I, being the pretentious bellend that I am, would rather it was a good piece of work than anything else if we're going to commit to it. So yeah, I'm just I have skepticism, because I would just like anything that depicts Liverpool to be as good as possible. But then simultaneously, I'm a hypocrite, because I obviously wanted to depict Liverpool as kindly as possible because I support Liverpool and I'm biased.
Yeah. So would you want a sort of all or nothing style documentary, or was that not your sort of? Would you prefer a Welcome to Wrexham kind of style one, like on Disney Plus?
I don't like either of the two comparisons that you've just made.
Okay.
I like Welcome to Wrexham, but I don't think that would necessarily sort of be something that would be a good way to storytell around Liverpool. I think Welcome to Wrexham is very much doing something specific. I think the all or nothing style documentary is, again, it always feels very, very managed to me. Like I just sort of think, I think for me, I'd always rather, on anything really, you're all in or you're not. And I just don't think that it'll be all in. But listen, I could be wrong. The production company could do a fantastic job. Everyone who works on it might, have the best possible reason. Liverpool might have cut, but might choose to waive it, if you see what I mean, because they want it to be the best possible thing. There's loads and loads of intricacies to it. I've got no doubt I will watch it, because literally I'll need to do my job. But as I say, I'm just a little. Yeah, I would always rather I'd rather every documentary, as I say, in the subject were separate as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair enough assessment of it. At the end of the day, everyone wants what's best for the club, and clearly, like you said, Ben, as long as it depicts us in the correct light and the correct form, no issue. I've got one more before I get onto a few little bits at the end. So, Darwin Nunez, very much, he's under criticism, then he's not, then he is, then he isn't. There's rival fans saying they don't see what he gives. Liverpool fans, I feel like, go very much the opposite way. I'm personally a big Darwin fan. I like what he brings to the team. I just want to get your overall thoughts on him, and can you see what his role is in this squad, as opposed to what a lot of the other outside pundits from different clubs and different perspectives don't see, per se?
I think he's exceptionally difficult to play against, and he makes he's hard to defend, and I think he's even harder to defend in the context of Salah. And I think he ruins where defenders defend, where the line is, and all that sort of stuff. It takes an excellent defensive performance to keep him at arm's length. And I think that you sort of saw what we miss in that for the period of time before he was on against Arsenal. And I think that Liverpool sort of never got to really impress upon that game, force the issue, because one of the reasons why is I think they weren't in a position to start Darwin Nunez, and Liverpool obviously also missed other players, but I think that's what Nunez gives you, which I just don't think many other forwards comparably do. I think the player I keep coming back to, and it obviously irritates people, but I feel as though there's a lot of Drogba in him in terms of goals. It's worth saying that Drogba got a lot of criticism in his first couple of seasons in England, because he didn't score that many goals. He gets, I think, 16 in his first season, and I think 15 or 17 in his second. The year after, he goes on and scores 34, all comps, but then the year after that, he goes back into the teens. But I don't think it's much of a leap of imagination that Nunez that one season Nunez just explodes and scores 30, 35, 40 goals in all comps. But that doesn't then another couple of seasons where he's on about 16 and everyone's frustrated and saying what's gone wrong there. And was that just a flash in a pan? And is he a one-season wonder? Yada, yada, yada. Whilst he's still basically playing a lot of the same football in a very, very similar way. That doesn't take much imagination. And that's sort of Drogba's career in front of goals. Dead interesting. He has 2 really high-scoring seasons. And then the rest of the time he contributes and keeps it ticking over, but he doesn't break 20. So I expect Nunez to break 20 this season. And then I think it becomes a question of obviously what Liverpool win and how he contributes to that. But I like the player a lot and think that Liverpool are better with him than without him.
Is there a sort of a thing to say that obviously because Salah's getting older and physically he's a specimen, we all know this, but he is slowing down just a little bit. Is it Nunez is able to do a bit more of the physical work that maybe Salah just can't quite do anymore? He's become more of the creator while Nunez is designed to pull the opposition defenders all over the pitch, giving Salah a bit more space.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that and giving everyone a bit more space. I think that there's lots and lots of evidence that Jota loves playing with Nunez. So I think you get to see that in there as well. So yeah, I think that's part of what he will do. He will create space for others because he occupies defenders. I thought he really, first half, he really, really hurt Chelsea. They couldn't work out where to put the line. They couldn't work out what to do with him. They ended up tucking Zazie in really, really close, which meant more room for Diaz, more room for Jones. They then were able to impress. And Nunez is not, at the centre of that, in terms of the playing balls or anything like that. But he was able to do that. And then second half, I think he loses his head a bit after he misses the penalty, but then he gets it back together and he does brilliantly for Diaz's goal. And it's a great example, the Diaz goal, of why he's so difficult to play against, because for all the world, everyone would have thought he'll go inside, but he doesn't. He goes outside. Then people would have thought, well, he'll stop and put it back on his right foot. He doesn't. He uses his left to get it across goal, and there's Diaz to tuck it away. It's so hard to defend against someone who can go left, go right, go inside, go outside. Someone who could go in any way. That's what defenders don't want, and that's what Nunez gives you.
I think Nunez is more. I think he's more suited to the wing personally than I think through the middle. I think in the middle he can sometimes. Not the pressure as such, but I think too much of it is relied through him. Whereas out wide, he sort of gets free reign to go, you do what you want. If you want to run to the byline, do it. If you want to go out wide, do it. If you want to cut inside, do it. He's a player that you can manage, but you need to manage him in a very specific way, it feels like. Now,
yeah, that could be fair, but I the one thing I would say is I think you've almost got to pick your battle. So, for instance, I thought he did brilliantly second half in the FA Cup game against Arsenal, where he gave Ben White a torrid time. I was frustrated to see that he wasn't used out wide as much as I'd have liked in that game against Arsenal just there at the weekend. The flip side of that is, though, there's other games where, for instance, against Chelsea, where he plays centre forward, and because he's in the middle, he's creating loads and loads of space for Jota, who's playing off the right. And if he's on the left, that's a harder thing to do. So I think you've almost got to, and I think one of the wondrousness of him, in a way, is that you can sort of decide where you're gonna employ him to cause the opposition most harm.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something that stresses a lot of people out. But hey ho, I love Darwin. I think we all are on the Darwin boat. We all love what he's doing, and long may it continue. Goals and assists galore. Captain Chaos. I mean, one last question just before I do a little fun thing, which only takes like 2 minutes. So I just want to get what's the atmosphere been like around Anfield recently with regards to since the Klopp news? Has it been a bit more lively? Because I saw Paul Mackin describe it as a bit surreal, a bit quiet towards the Norwich game. What's it been like for you?
I thought it was great against Chelsea. I thought it was a bit weird against Norwich, but it's a fourth round FA Cup game. So it was always going to be a bit weird with the obviously added context. People weren't quite sure what to do. Chelsea, I thought there was a real vibe of, right, well, let's just crack on then. We've got to win this. And that's the right attitude. And I suspect it'll be similar for Burnley and Luton coming up. Let's crack on because, we've got however many games left with this manager. It'll be sort of circa 15 in the league, obviously. And then there's at least 2 more European and 2 more cup games that we've got with them, and I think we've got to absolutely relish every minute, and I think that's what people are prepared to do. So I think it'll be good from now until the end of the season. I think the last day will be obviously exceptionally sad and emotional, but I think it's important that emotion is harnessed positively between now and then.
Right, absolutely. And last thing, just before we go, so I've got a couple of players. I just want your either one word or you can do a little sentence for them. You just give me your immediate reactions. anything about them, how good they were, how bad they were, etc. Start off with a nice and easy one. Luis Suarez.
Magical.
Oh, I like that one. No one. That's the first time I've heard that one when it's used to describe him. Martin Skirtle.
Oh God, I have very mixed feelings about Martin Skirtle. Scored loads of goals in 13-14. Loved him for that, and loads of own goals as well. Didn't like him as much for that, but still laugh.
That was a chaotic season. That bloody hell.
Yeah.
Jimmy Traore.
Seemed sound.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Mohamed Salah.
The best.
The best. Okay. Adam Lallana.
Really important cultural architect for Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then we've got two more. These are ones that were suggested to me. I don't know what. Some of them are very out there. Yossi Benayoun.
Oh, the summer of Yossi. Loved Benayoun in the run in 2009. Absolutely loved him.
Yeah. And then the last one, I think the biggest one of all, Steven Gerrard.
Incredible player. Loved him in the running of 2009 until he got injured, and in many, many others. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I completely agree. Would you say he's the best of all time for Liverpool?
I don't know. I think that Salah's obviously very strong in that conversation. Dalglish is strong in that conversation. Gerrard is very, very strong in that conversation. You know, I think that when you see clips of what Gerrard did from time to time now, it's breathtaking to sort of see the range and the brilliance of him. But there's just a lot to be said and Gerrard did this as well, certainly in 2008-9. But you'll always love the lads who stick the ball in the back of the net, and maybe that's a bit unfair. But yeah, it's always it's the hardest bit of football for a reason.
Absolutely. And if you want to see more fantastic footballing content, if you want to hear more opinions with regards to Liverpool Football Club, everyone, please make sure that you go check out the Anfield Wrap. And just really quickly before we go, guys, just want to say a massive thank you for helping us reach 10,000 subscribers. Really appreciated. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in, liked and subscribed. And as I say, if you haven't already, download the Anfield Wrap app for all the latest journalistic articles, podcast videos, and updates on Liverpool Football Club. Neil, just want to say a massive thank you for coming on. It really is appreciated. And yeah, any closing words before you shoot off?
Nope, just people enjoy the rest of this season. It's important that people enjoy it. I know it wasn't great against Arsenal. I was away for it. I know it was a blow, but it's important to enjoy every last minute of it with this manager and with lots of these players who are so special.
Absolutely. We've got to make sure that we give Klopp the best send-off possible. Let's go out there and just play every single game like it's the last game on earth, because we have to for that man. From myself and Neil, thank you very much. Please make sure to hit like and subscribe. And as I say, go check out the Anfield Wrap. I will see you on the next video of Expert Analysis. It'll be out pretty soon. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Have a nice day.